ഫേമസ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള ലണ്ടൻ ഐ.
First, folks, we have the Tower Bridge. Now, Tower Bridge opened in 1894.
ഹലോ ഫ്രണ്ട്സ്, UK മലയാളിയുടെ വീഡിയോയിലേക്ക് എല്ലാവർക്കും സ്വാഗതം. എൻ്റെ പേര് രതീഷ്. ഞാനിപ്പോൾ ഉള്ളത് ലണ്ടനിലെ ഫേമസ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു ലാൻഡ്മാർക്കാണ് ലണ്ടൻ ഐ. ആ ലണ്ടൻ ഐയുടെ അടുത്താണ് ഞാനിപ്പോൾ ഉള്ളത്. അവിടെ നിന്ന് അതായത് ക്രൂസ് ഷിപ്പിൽ ഈ ലണ്ടനിലെ പ്രശസ്തിയായിട്ടുള്ള അടിപൊളി സ്ഥലങ്ങൾ കാണാൻ പോവാണ്. ഏതെന്ന് വെച്ചിട്ടുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ ഒന്ന് ലണ്ടൻ ഐ, രണ്ട് ഹൗസ് ഓഫ് പാർലമെൻറ്റ്, മൂന്നാമത് ലണ്ടൻ ബ്രിഡ്ജ്, പിന്നെ ടവർ ബ്രിഡ്ജ്, അതുപോലെ സെൻറ്റ് പോൾ കത്തീഡ്രൽ, അത് കഴിഞ്ഞിട്ട് ഗ്രീൻ വിച്ചിലേക്കാണ് പോകുന്നത്. അപ്പോൾ നമ്മൾ അതിൻ്റെ അടിപൊളി സൈറ്റ് സീയിങ് കാഴ്ചയാണ് കാണാൻ പോകുന്നത്. അപ്പോൾ നമുക്ക് എന്തായാലും വീഡിയോയിലേക്ക് പോകും. നിങ്ങൾ ആദ്യമായിട്ട് വീഡിയോ ചാനൽ സബ്സ്ക്രൈബ് ചെയ്യാൻ മറക്കണ്ട. അപ്പോൾ നമുക്ക് എന്തായാലും വീഡിയോയിലേക്ക് പോകാം. ഹലോ ഫ്രണ്ട്സ്, അപ്പോൾ ഞാൻ ബോട്ടിനകത്ത് എത്തിയിട്ടുണ്ട്. ഇൻസ്ട്രക്ടറൊക്കെ ഇവിടെ ഉണ്ട്. അപ്പോൾ നമുക്ക് എന്തായാലും ലണ്ടൻ സൈറ്റ് സീയിങ് ആണ് കാണാൻ പോകുന്നത്. ഏകദേശം കുറച്ച് ലോങ് വീഡിയോ ആയിരിക്കും. അപ്പോൾ നിങ്ങൾ എന്തായാലും വീഡിയോ കാണുക. അതായത് ലണ്ടനിൽ വന്നിട്ട് ഈ ഒരു റിവർ സൈഡ് ക്രൂയിസ് കണ്ട പോലെ തന്നെ ഒരു ഫീൽ ചെയ്യും. ലണ്ടൻ ഐൻ്റെ പ്രത്യേകത വെച്ചിട്ടുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ ഇന്ത്യയിലെ ഏറ്റവും ഫേമസ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു ടൂറിസ്റ്റ് അട്രാക്ഷനാണ് ഈ ലണ്ടൻ ഐ. ഇതിൻ്റെ കമ്പനി എന്ന് വെച്ചിട്ടുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ കൊക്കോകോള ലണ്ടൻ ഐ എന്നറിയപ്പെടുന്നത്. അതായത് കൊക്കോകോള എന്ന ബ്രാൻഡാണ് ഇത് റൺ ചെയ്യുന്നത്. അതായത് യൂറോപ്പിൽ തന്നെ ഏറ്റവും വലിയ ഒബ്സർവേഷൻ വീലാണ് ലണ്ടൻ ഐ. ഏകദേശം ഒരു വർഷം 3 മില്യൺ ആൾക്കാർ വിസിറ്റ് ചെയ്യാൻ വേണ്ടിയിട്ട് വരുന്ന ഒരു UK വലിയൊരു ലാൻഡ്മാർക്ക്. ഈ ലണ്ടൻ ഐൻ്റെ അകത്ത് കയറിയിട്ടുള്ള ലണ്ടൻ സിറ്റി മൊത്തം കാണുന്ന ഒരു വീഡിയോ വേറെ ചെയ്യുന്നുണ്ട്. അപ്പോൾ തന്നെ നമുക്ക് എന്തായാലും ഇതിൻ്റെ റിവർ സൈഡിലൂടെ പോയിട്ട് ഇവിടുത്തെ ഫേമസ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള സ്ഥലങ്ങൾ കാണാമെന്ന്.
It is one of the most famous, it's one of the most luxurious, and it's certainly one of the most expensive hotels in the world. The cheapest room over there is over £550 per night. In front of us we have the Waterloo Bridge, completed during the Second World War by the Land Army. It is more affectionately known here on the Thames as the Ladies' Bridge. This is because the Land Army at that time was made up of 80% female labour, all our men were away fighting in the armed forces. It's also the only bridge to ever be completed on time and on budget. To the right hand side, the first building over there on the right behind the trees with the illuminated sign is the National Theatre. This building has been voted by 7 of London's top architects as being the ugliest looking building in London. Prince Charles described the building as looking like the back end of a nuclear power station. I think most people would agree with him. Also to the right hand side, the tall tower blocked with all the windows, that's Kent House. Up until about 18 months ago, that was the main studios for ITV television. Well, they moved into new studios in the area of Shepherd's Bush. If you go home tonight and put BBC London News on, you'll see the river in the background. The river in the background. It's all pre-recorded, so there's no one in there now. There is talk of them turning it into yet more luxury flats and apartments. Now over to the left hand side is a large white ship with a yellow funnel. It's called Wellington. It's the former sloop of the New Zealand Royal Navy. It is now permanently moored up as the floating livery hall for the Honourable Company of Past Master Mariners. To be a Master Mariner you have to have served over 25 years at sea. The late Prince Philip was the president of that club for many years. But look just above the canopy on the back, it's getting difficult to see, it's a tight company. Can you just see the top of a stone archway with the face of old Father Thames overlooking his old river? The Temple Arch. Now this is the boundary line between two cities. The city of Westminster we are just about to leave. We're now about to enter one of the world's smallest capital cities at only 1 square mile, the City of London. Now as we head through the City of London, you may notice there is very little advertising on the banks of the River Thames. It's because we have very strict advertising laws. Because the River Thames is a royal highway. But if you look to the right hand side coming up, you'll see how an architect very cleverly got around the laws by incorporating the company's name into the building. Look at the red brick building, look at the tower on the top of the windows. Oxo. I'm sure you've all heard of Oxo, the people who make the famous gravy statue. The building no longer belongs to the Oxo company. It's a Grade 2 listed building. Therefore it can never ever legally be removed. It comprises of many different things. The bottom's a few shops, the middle is luxury apartments, and the top is the famous Oxo Tower restaurant. Now coming up on the left hand side there is a red brick Gothic style building. It looks a bit like a church. It is the Zion College and Library. Houses over 300,000 very rare and expensive books, including Queen Victoria's own personal Bible and diary. The building next door with the sloped roof and the spire in the middle, this is the old City of London School for Boys. Many famous people educated in that building, people like Lord Asquith and Lloyd George, 2 of our former Prime Ministers. The building now belongs to JP Morgan, the American bank. The semicircular building on the end is the Unilever House. That's the London offices for Lever Brothers, one of the largest manufacturers in Europe today, making over 800 different products. So the bridge in front of us, this is the Blackfriars Road Bridge. Look to the battlements of the bridge, you can see which represent parapets from a church. These were put here at the express wish of Queen Victoria to commemorate the old Blackfriars Monastery, which stood to the left hand side. Up to the top of these parapets you can see carvings of birds in the top. Now on this upper side, these are freshwater birds. The one on the lower side are saltwater birds, which you see and find at sea. I do say it's at this point of the river where the freshwater meets the saltwater. They call it brackish. The second bridge is the Blackfriars Railway Bridge, and as we pass beneath, in the middle, is all that remains from the first ever railway bridge to span the River Thames, the old St Paul's Railway Bridge. It carried the first steam trains across the river for the Chatham and Dover railway system. They removed the top half of the bridge many years ago as it couldn't take the weight of the modern day trains. If you remove the old pillars though, you'd undermine the foundations of the modern day bridge and it would become unsafe. That's why they still remain. Now to the right hand side we have the building with the tall chimney, the old Bankside Power Station. Today the Tate Modern Art Gallery. If you're interested in modern art, go over there. You can see things like a pile of old bricks, half a cow in a jar, bits of screwed up newspaper, and a light bulb that flicks on and off. What a fantastic day out. If you want to see a real work of art, look to the left hand side. Dominating the skyline we have the dome and golden cross on St Christopher Wren's masterpiece, St Paul's Cathedral. This took Wren 35 years to complete. It stands 365 feet tall and it is the second largest unsupported cathedral dome in Europe. The second to that of St Peter's in the Vatican City in Rome. Linking the Tate to St Paul's we have Longman Foster's Millennium Footbridge, opened in year 2000. And as we pass down through this bridge, we actually have our next stop, which is the Bankside Pier. Tate Modern Art Gallery, Shakespeare's Globe Theatre, and St Paul's Cathedral. Don't worry folks, it's tea time. Does anyone wish to leave us at Bankside Pier? Now the reason I'm asking, there's no one to pick up, so if there's no one getting off, we don't bother stopping. If there's anyone on the top there, if you want to get off, just raise your hands. Right, if there's anyone in the saloon, my colleague's going to come down there. Please let him know, because I say if not, we're going to go straight past. And look to the right hand side, see the white painted building with the red front door? This is number 49 Cardinals Wharf at Bankside. This was once the home of Sir Christopher Wren for the 35 years it took to build St Paul's Cathedral. Also to the right hand side, that white circular building with the thatched roof, that's the replica of Shakespeare's Globe Theatre. It was built at the dream of an American film director called Sam Wanamaker, and it's the first building in London that's been built entirely out of wood since the Great Fire of London of 1666. Go over there today and see an old Shakespearean play being reenacted as it would have been done in Shakespeare's time. In the front of us we have the Southwark Bridge, opened in 1921 and was originally built to relieve the strain from the old London Bridge. But look up above the bridge in front of us on the right, dominating the skyline, the Shard. At the moment the Shard is still the tallest tower block in Western Europe, standing 1,016 feet tall. Comprises of many different things, a luxury 5-star hotel, private apartments, and the top is a viewing gallery. Before we go through Southwark Bridge though, look in the right hand corner at the foot of the bridge. There's a flight of stairs coming into the river. This is Southwark Causeway. It's also known as Wren's Stairs, as it was on those stairs Sir Christopher Wren used to board a small rowing boat every morning before being rowed across the river to supervise the building of St Paul's Cathedral. So in front of us we have another bridge. This is the Cannon Street Railway Bridge, and that's about it really. Other than that, there's no historical interest in this bridge whatsoever. Before we go through the bridge though, over to the right, a very old and historical pub called the Anchor Bankside. That's 106 years old. In 2015, it's 406 years old. In 2015, it's celebrated its 400th birthday. Over the years, has been frequented by many famous people, including William Shakespeare, as the original Globe Theatre stood somewhere behind the pub in a place called Park Street. It is one of the nicer riverside pubs, but as you can see for yourself, if you get a bit of sunshine, it does get ever so busy. Now from the bridge, if we keep looking to the right, we have a small sailing ship in West Dock. It is the replica of Francis Drake's old ship. It's called Golden Hind. Now Francis Drake was the first Englishman to navigate the world. As I say, a replica ship built down in Devon about 35 years ago to commemorate Drake's voyage. Now moored up as a museum, you pay a small fee and go on there. There's all the history of Sir Francis Drake. In front of us we have the New London Bridge. This one was opened by Her Majesty the Queen in 1973. The first ever London Bridge actually dates back to the Roman times of AD 43. Before we go through the bridge though, look to your right. Looking at the gap between the buildings, we have the lovely Southwark Cathedral. Now there's been a place of worship over there since the 12th century. It was over there where a man called John Harvard was baptised, the son of a local tradesman. He left England and he went to America, where he founded the Harvard Library, which in turn became a part of the Harvard University in Massachusetts, USA. I'll say parts of that building date back to the 12th century. Now once we pass through the London Bridge, look to your left hand side, because you'll only get a quick glimpse. There is a small gap between the buildings. In the gap is a tall stone column with a golden top. It is Sir Christopher Wren's monument to the Great Fire of London of 1666. Built to represent a candle, they do say it was a candle which started the fire in the baker's shop in Woodin Lane. If you lay it on its end in an easterly direction, it would touch the point of where the baker's shop once stood. Also to the left hand side we have this lovely yellow brick building. It's the old Billingsgate Fish Market. Now a fish market stood on site for just over 900 years, until the late 80s, when the tradition was sadly broken and it moved downstream to larger premises in the Docklands area. The building today is a private function hall. The building next door behind the trees is the Water Guard House, the headquarters of Her Majesty's Customs and Excise. That is where they train those lovely smiling people who rip your bags apart when you get to the airport. In front of us on the right is London's very own warship. This is the HMS Belfast. She was the largest of the light cruisers ever built for the British Royal Navy. Weighs 11,500 tonnes. She saw active service during World War II and she last fired her guns in anger at the Korean campaign. She was decommissioned from the Navy in the 1970s, brought here by the Imperial War Museum. She's now permanently moored up 7 days a week as a museum ship to the public. In front of us folks we have the Tower Bridge. Now Tower Bridge opened in 1894, a twin suspension and a bascule bridge. When I say a bascule bridge, I mean the lowest section of the centre arch can actually raise in 2 halves like giant drawbridges to allow larger shipping in and out the upper pool of London. The Tower Bridge was actually built in the Gothic style to blend in with its surroundings. On the left hand side we have the world famous Tower of London. Now work first commenced on the tower under the orders of William the Conqueror in 1078. It has been used as many things in its time: a royal palace, a zoo, a mint, an observatory, most famously a prison and a place of execution. Look to the river bank as we go past the tower. There's a picked up archway. Above the archway, entering to the Traitor's Gate. If you was found guilty of your crimes at the Palace of Westminster, you would have been rowed down the river, led up that once open archway, up onto Tower Hill, where you've then been executed. That is said to have been the first ever one-way street in London. Well folks, very shortly we're going to pass down through Tower Bridge. We're then going to make a brief stop over on the left-hand side at St Catherine's Pier. Now, information regarding tickets and returning boats. If you only have the Tower Bridge St Catherine's ticket, you must leave the boat at this point. Your next returning boat will be here very shortly to pick you up and take you back upstream to Westminster. Returning boats throughout the day are every 40 minutes until 5:40 this afternoon. There will be a ticket agent at the exit who will give you any information you may require. Anyone going downstream to Greenwich, now, as I say folks, anyone going downstream to Greenwich, just stay on board this boat. Now, just before we get to the pier, there is one other place of interest, and it's actually on board the boat itself. At the front of the boat, there is a young lady called Emily, and it's Emily. Where's Emily? Where are you? It's her birthday. She's at the front. Emily, stand up. Where are you? You're telling everyone it's your birthday. There she is. Happy birthday, Emily. Many happy returns. Lovely. Well, folks, as I say, we're now going to call in at this next stop, which is St Catherine's for the tower. So for the people leaving us, when we get alongside, we're all pretty much going to be straight in and straight out. For the people leaving us, just stay in the seats until we do get safely alongside, though, folks, especially the kids. But when we do get alongside, if you are leaving us, I hope you've enjoyed your trip downstream on board the Thomas Doggett, and I hope you've enjoyed a few points and places of interest. As I pointed out before I started, and I'm sure you've realised by now, we're not professional guides on these boats. But unfortunately...
ഫ്രണ്ട്സ്, അപ്പോൾ എത്തി നമ്മളിവിടെ ടവർ ബ്രിഡ്ജിൻ്റെ അടുത്ത് എത്തിയിട്ടുണ്ട്. ടവർ ബ്രിഡ്ജിൻ്റെ വേറൊരു വീഡിയോ ഞാൻ മുന്നേ ചെയ്തതാണ്. അതിൻ്റെ ലിങ്ക് ഞാൻ മുകളിൽ കൊടുക്കുന്നുണ്ട് എന്തായാലും.
Hasn't really changed at all. Once again, they're all listed buildings, so they're all virtually the same as when they've done the original filming for Oliver Twist. And also to the right hand side, you can see what's becoming more and more popular here on the Thames. You see these barges. It's become so expensive to live overlooking the river. People now go to places like Holland and Germany and buy these barges to live on. It's not a bad way to live as long as you don't mind your front room bouncing up and down. And it does have its advantages. If you get the of your neighbours, you simply just cut their ropes in the night time and watch them float away. To give you an example of how pricey property is, look on the left, see the glass buildings, that end block. The round bit on the top, that's the penthouse. When that was built about 10, 12, 15 years ago, it sold for 5.5 million. I'll be honest with you though, that's actually cheap at today's prices. One of the new buildings next to Tower Bridge, just before lockdown, that actually sold for 25 million. At those sort of prices, you do get a lot of rich and famous living on the banks of the Thames, and if you keep looking to the left hand side, coming up there is an opening in the river wall. This is the old Wapping dock entrance. It's actually being filled in today, but the house on the corner, the old dockmaster's house, belongs to a man called Michael Crawford. He starred as the Phantom of the Opera, also as Frank Spencer. Some mothers do have. His next door neighbour is a lady called Dame Judy Dench. But as we go past, see Oliver's Wharf next to it. Look down the side of the building where it says Oliver's, and you can see there's a pub been built on the outside. It is called the Town of Ramsgate. Now, the town of Ramsgate used to also be used as an Admiralty court. If you was found guilty of piracy or smuggling in that building, you were sentenced to a form of execution known as the Grace of Wapping. Now, Wapping is the part of land over there in East London. As we once found guilty, you was given your last drink, and they waited till low water. They then led you out of the pub and down that small flight of stairs. They walked you along the foreshore to the small warehouse on the end with the letter E in the middle. This is the old site of the execution dock. The Grace of Wapping, you would have been taken to the beach outside of there, chained down to it and left there for 36 hours, where 3 full tides would then pass over your head before you were pronounced well and truly dead. The man who started the form of execution was a gruesome man called Judge Jeffreys. After he sentenced the pirates, he'd board a small rowing boat. He'd be rowed across the river and then go to this pub. Between the boats over there on the right, the Angel of Rotherhithe. He would sit on the balcony of this pub with his invited guests watching the tide rise up and drown the old pirates. It's said that he found it highly amusing. But look back to the left-hand side. As we go past the police pier, there's another pub coming up. Now, the pub isn't famous, but the name on the top is Captain Kidd. Captain William Kidd was actually the last pirate to be executed back over there at Execution Dock, along with the rest of his crew, back in 1701. The charges against them were piracy, smuggling and non-payment of government tax. If you'd done that today, you wouldn't get the grace of Wapping. You would get community service or a seat in the House of Lords. To the right hand side above the buildings is a church spire, the St Mary's Church, Rotherhithe. In the graveyard of this building lays the remains of a man called Captain Christopher Jones. Anyone ever heard of him? The American brother? Talk about him in a moment. See the chimney pot, Thames Tunnel Mill? We're just about to go over the top of the first ever underwater tunnel anywhere in the world. In 1843, Mark Brunel opened the Thames Tunnel, but it's still used to this day by the Metropolitan Line. But also to the right hand side, there's an English and American flag flying over there. There's a pub behind it. Now the pub is called the Mayflower. Now look at the weather vane on the top. It's a tiny little sailing ship. It was actually over there where the famous pilgrim ship Mayflower was actually built. Captain Christopher Jones, who's buried in St Mary's, he was the captain and part owner of it. It set sail from over there in 1620. It went down to the south coast of this country where it picked up the Pilgrim Fathers, or the Pilgrims. It then headed to the south coast of this country, and it then headed to what they called the New World. Today we call that country America. So last year was actually a 400th anniversary. It was supposed to be a great big parade of boats, and a couple of them were going down to try and recreate the voyage, but unfortunately due to the pandemic all had to be cancelled. Now over to the left hand side we have a small white painted building. This is the Prospects of Whitby. This is the oldest registered pub on the banks of the River Thames. It dates back to 1520. It was 100 years before the Mayflower set sail. But it was built in the reign of Henry VIII. An awful lot of history has gone on in that pub. It was known for the famous pirates who used to use it, but it was also known for the notorious press gangs. It's in a place called Shadwell, which used to be an old shanty town. And what would happen, the press gangs would hang around outside a pub like that, waiting for a young man to come out after having one too many. And they would then push him over the back of the head. When he wakes up, when he comes round, he could board the ship, he's on his way out to sea, because he had just been press ganged against the Royal Navy. Nobody wanted to join the Royal Navy back then. Your life expectancy was no more than 2 years before dying of scurvy or something far worse. Now also coming up on the left hand side, this red brick monstrosity. Now, I know it looks like it's been designed by a 5-year-old with his Lego bricks, but it has purposely been designed in this way. There is over 480 apartments over there. Every single one of them gets a riverside view. Obviously, the more views in the truck, the more valuable the property. It's been built on a part of land they call the Free Trade Wharf. And Free Trade Wharf gets its name from the days of the plague of 1665. When the plague was in London, no country would allow their ships up the Thames, all except for one, the Dutch. They said if it wasn't for the Dutch merchant navy, those who didn't die from the plague would have probably starved to a death. So our government at the time granted all Dutch ships free trade. They didn't have to pay any in and out port taxes. It was all completely exempt. And they do also say that is where you get the old-fashioned saying from of Dutch courage. Now if you keep looking to the left-hand side, coming up there is an opening in the river wall. Just before the opening, the red brick building with the green conservatory, this is the Narrow in Limehouse. It's one of Gordon Ramsay's gastro pubs. For those of you who don't know the difference between a gastro pub and a normal pub, well, it's quite simple really. It's about another £4.5 a pint. But as we go past the opening, the bridge says Limehouse Marina. This was always known as the Regent's Dock, or the Regent's Canal Dock. Look up above the bridge, see the tall glass building? Just before it, there is a concrete pillar with a red statue on the top. This is where the Regent's Dock ends. This is where the Regent's Canal actually starts. Once you join the Regent's Canal, you join nearly 400 miles, or nearly 300 miles of canal system. You can get in a small narrowboat and you can navigate up to places like Birmingham and Manchester. We dug them canals out by hand nearly 400 years ago to bring cargoes up and down from the north of England. And then someone invented the train and we pretty much forgot where they were. The trouble is it can take up to 3 weeks to get there by barge. The trains could do it so much quicker. Now, if you keep looking to the left-hand side, look up above the buildings, there's another church spire, and this one's flying a flag. With a very unusual flag for a building to fly. It's flying the White Ensign. It's normally only a Royal Naval ship which flies the White Ensign, but that is St Anne's in Limehouse. And it used to be over there where they used to register all births, deaths and marriages which took place on British ships at sea. When they come back into port, that's where they had to register it, and that's why it flies the White Ensign. Now also to the left hand side, the opening in the River Walk is at the entrance to the lime kiln dock. Now it's actually up the end of there where they had the lime kilns, basically where they made the bricks to rebuild London after the Great Fire of London of 1666. It was Charles II on the phone at the time, and after the Great Fire he said London may no longer be built by timber, it must all be built by brick and stone. And that's where a lot of the brickwork come from, to rebuild the city. Well, talking of building work, keep looking to the left. See all these tall tower blocks? It's hard to imagine it was only just over 30 years ago. Not one of these buildings existed. This was all the old site of the London docks. In the London docks, there was a wharf where the ships come over from the Canary Islands. The Fred Olsen shipping line used to bring us cargoes of fruit to the Canary Wharf. Well, over the years the docks closed down and all the land was bought up by 2 Canadian brothers called the Wrightman brothers, and they have now turned this into the new financial heart of Europe. See the building with a pointed roof and a flashing light on the top? That is the Canada Tower. For many years that was the tallest tower block in Great Britain. As you can see, it's being dwarfed now by all these new buildings, and it will be even more so. They reckon by 2030 there'll be at least another 15 tower blocks over there, and they say once completed will look like the Manhattan area in New York. Now if you keep looking to the left, it's all modern design Canary Wharf. You see the building with the sloped sides and all the round windows? This is called Cascades. The architect who designed that said, I'm going to design a building which will represent a sailing ship under full sail. If there's anyone on board who thinks that looks anything like a sailing ship under full sail, I think you're probably on the same medication he was when he designed it. See the tower blocks going up just through the building zone? You'll be amazed how quick these buildings go up. Before lockdown, that building behind Cascades, the tallest one, that wasn't much higher than that. Bearing in mind they shut down for a little while as well. None of us out here worked out here for about 15 months. We then come back and they've completed it and they've already started another 2. I say it is remarkable how fast these buildings can go up. They can actually go up at a rate of nearly 2 stories a week. It's unbelievable. Well folks, as we've come round the next bend, for the next few minutes there's not a great deal to talk about.
അപ്പോൾ വീഡിയോ മുഴുവൻ കണ്ടു എന്ന് പ്രതീക്ഷിക്കുന്നു. നിങ്ങൾക്ക് വീഡിയോ ഇഷ്ടമായെങ്കിൽ ചാനൽ സബ്സ്ക്രൈബ് മറക്കണ്ട. ഇതുപോലുള്ള UK യിലെ മനോഹരമായ വീഡിയോ ആയിട്ട്